Let's welcome Gary Griffith, former Commissioner of Police. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Pastor. Good evening, Professor, and good evening to your many viewers.
Good evening. So welcome back, both gentlemen, welcome back. And the topic for discussion is rebuilding the nation according to Christian biblical perspective. Let's go. I want to start off with Gary Griffith this evening. You know, I was thinking, I'm sitting down and I'm looking at my country, Trinidad and Tobago. And one of the things that makes us special is the diversity, different creeds, different races. In fact, it's in our anthem, every creed and race find an equal place, right? So we have such great diversity, all different types of people. How can we achieve unity? Because apart from being a former commissioner, you're also the leader of a party, and I suppose with hopes of being prime minister one day. How can we, I want to kick it off from here this evening, how is it possible to achieve unity from such great diversity? How is that really possible to get people of all different creeds and races and religion and all this thing to be one? How can you manage the country? If, let's say, you were to be the prime minister, how does one manage such great diversity? We're starting there this evening.
Yes, and good evening again. I would think that because of that diversity, it makes it even better. We're supposed to see that as having the glass half full rather than being half empty. And you would have seen it. You'll never see that compassion, that unification in Trinidad and Tobago more than and most countries in the world. Then you'll see it during Carnival. You'll see it when we qualify for the World Cup. You'll see it during Christmas when we parang. And there's absolutely no animosity, no concern about race, about religion, geographical location, political party affiliation. So what will cause the problem? Leadership. On most occasions, the problem that we have, the concerns that we have in this country has to do again with sometimes politicians who get in a position, and on most occasions, politicians will deliberately try to divide the country for their own gain to succeed. And that is where I am hoping that one day that most citizens will open their eyes and not be so beholden to man. You have to be beholden to your God. And they get so caught up in, I remember Donald Trump making a comment, he said that he could actually shoot someone in Times Square and the vast majority of Republicans would still vote for him. The sad case of affairs is that is probably true throughout the world, where certain individuals, and I could even look at myself, when a certain political leader gave me full support to be commissioner of police, everybody who supported, 99% who supported that party agreed with it. As soon as he changed his mind, probably half of them changed their mind immediately. If he changes his mind tomorrow, they will change it again. And my point is, people have to be servants to their God. You can't be servant to man. That is the problem we have, and that is what will cause the issue you speak about, whether it is Indo-Trinidadians or Afro-Trinidadians or difference in religion. And that is where politicians must remember why they, again, it's the same thing I spoke about last week. When you put your hand on that Bible, it was to your God, your country, and the people, not to what's keeping in power. And that is where sometimes certain politicians, and this is not in any way to point fingers at the present political leader of the government, I do not see him as being evil. I want to clear the air on that immediately. Sometimes, however, there would be evil that might get and influence politicians, because many politicians in this country, who gets the last A of that politician, that is what they believe. And sometimes those words of evil, bitterness, envy, prejudice, hatred, bitterness, division, politicians use those things sometimes indirectly or deliberately for their own ascendancy. And I just hope that if it is that we really look at the scripture and look at what it is that where God put you, and you put your hand on a Bible or whatever that you swore your oath on, those are the things about good, uniting, compassion, being humble, being God-fearing. If politicians can really do that, this country can definitely be united.
But do we ask that of them when they put their hand up? Do we say to them, listen, this is what we're expecting of you when, you know, should you get into power? Do we say that? Do we ask them? Do we tell them that's a requirement? Or is it that their popularity and, you know, whatever else they bring to the table Do we ask them that question, Mr. Griffith?
No, unfortunately we don't. There will be always 150,000 on either side of the political fence that regardless of all the good or the bad you see on either side, they're going to stick to it. That is what we unfortunately have to endure. It doesn't make these people evil. It doesn't make them bad. It is unfortunate. I feel sorry for them, because if you have an evil person, you're saying, I don't care if that person is evil. Regardless of all the points you're telling me, I am still going to vote for him or her, and vice versa. It is to try to get the citizens of this country understand that these people, they are men, they are women, they are human beings. You can't worship them. You're supposed to worship your God. And therein lies the problem. You will actually hear, even like as it pertains to commissioners of police, those before me and after me, they continue to say their big crime plan is divine intervention. It can't be divine intervention. God is not going to put on camouflage and jump down here and just smite and strike all evildoers. No, God helps those who help themselves. And that is where myself as a commissioner of police, I understood that I was not a soldier to man, but a soldier to my God and a servant to my God. And if it is that I have to operate in such a manner to fight and be prepared to give my life for my country, for the average citizen, for a stranger, that is what is required. And by me doing that, I will never, never turn a blind eye to accept wrongdoing because of political affiliation. Maybe that's probably why I was fired on 2 occasions. I stand firm on principle. I stand firm on what I believe in. I am not going to be politically manipulated, and I am not going to sell my soul to evil to remain in power.
Years ago, there was an attempt at Vision 2020, which, in my estimation, was the closest that we came to developing something comprehensive for the country that everybody could subscribe to. But alas, history has played out differently. But if we don't have a shared sense of vision or values or virtues, then what we're hoping to achieve will not be accomplished. I pause.
Thank you, Ricken. Well, I know that was a comment and not a question. I don't know if either gentleman want to respond to it, or we just continue.
I would love to. Mr. Allen, it's interesting that you said Vision 2020 is the closest. And I could actually tell you it is probably nothing could be further from the truth. And I'll tell you why. This is the Vision 2020 was a pie in the sky specifically because it had nothing to do with different minds, different persons, different personalities having an input in the preparation and laying of the foundation for Vision 2020. Vision 2020 was, you had to have a specific party card to be part of the concept towards Vision 2020. Anytime you do something totally political, it will never work, because at the end of the day, the political party or the politicians will no longer be there. What this country needs is not a Vision 2020 or Vision 2030, and we'll keep going 10 years as soon as we get closer, or a manifesto. What we need is a proper roadmap, a roadmap that allows the best minds, the best persons available, regardless of your political affiliation, to come forward and say, how are we going to send health forward? Education, the economy, national security. You can't do that by just saying, it is we time now, we in government, who has the party card? Okay, let's get together and come up with a Vision 2020. You cut off 60% of the population in having an input. So guess what happens? As soon as the government changes, that goes on the shelf. It may not be correct, but that is where you need to have politicians with the understanding and the maturity to accept that regardless of person's political affiliation, your input, your view has a big part to play in it, because you may very well be replacing me in 5 years' time or less.
How do we get believers, Christians, to say, I want to be a part of this?
If I could. So let me see how quickly I add in here. This all has to do with transformation, really and truly. So it reminds me of when I was Minister of National Security. I was in a service there with Reverend Margaret Lee. She in charge of Jesus is the Answer, Indigo Martin. And I was a Catholic, and there were these pastors from overseas, Chicago or somewhere. I never knew them, they never knew me. And they made this statement. They came and they started praying with me, and they said that the position that I am in now is something that is preparing me to serve my God at a higher level, at a more important level. I trivialized it. I said, I'm the Minister of National Security. What more could I and should I do? So I smile, I listen. A few years later, I then became Commissioner of Police. And still, they have stated that I am being prepared to serve my God. And the reason I'm saying that is that the biggest thing that I have seen as a politician, I am not a veteran politician. I've only been in politics for a few years, mind you. But the problem that exists in Trinidad and Tobago is that we worship man. We don't worship God. And when I say we worship man, when you look at 150,000 persons who are totally blinded that they are going to support one color over another on both sides, but you're a Christian, you are basically saying that if the devil takes over your party, you are still going to vote for that party. That is what we have to break. That is what we have to transform. You cannot say that you're a Christian and you don't care who this man or woman is. I am going to support this party till I'm dead. You know that line? So-and-so till I'm dead, or born as so-and-so, and I will die as so-and-so. You can't see yourself as a Christian. If you know, and you're looking at, and it's on the wall, the writing is on the wall, seeing what an individual is doing. So say, for example, there's an individual who is failing miserably because he's not performing. My wife, Nicole Griffith, just put a petition out today to demand that some change must take place. We had a situation where a 13-year-old young girl was raped and then killed because of pettiness and petty politics, where I put systems in place to ensure there was online reporting, app reporting, a proper gender-based violence unit to ensure there's a degree of confidentiality, because we understand the sensitivity of when a female is raped or abused by her husband. Before me, and now after me again, they have to go back to the police station. There's a very good chance the police officer is a good friend of the husband or the individuals who raped the girl. We have deliberately shut down and dismantled things that I put in place to protect citizens of this country. You have shut down and dismantled it. That could have indirectly caused a 13-year-old girl to die. We have 4 teenagers who were killed in Arima, and the man who is responsible for security says, well, we should do a case study about it. And instead, people who are listening right now, who may be whatever political party till they die, will try to find a defensive mechanism not to trivialize what I am saying. And that is my point. When you have a financial intelligence institution digging up in the accounts of political opponents, when you have political parties actually wiretapping the phones of law-abiding citizens, when you have political parties trying to direct police officers to go to Barbados to arrest persons who are maybe politically opposed to that government, and you can still say, I still am going to support that party, but I'm a Christian. You can't be a Christian because now you're worshiping man and not God. So my point is, we need to try to be open. I'm listening to Mr. Allen, and he typed something and said, no, there was mass consultation. Mr. Allen, I will eat my cell phone if you can show me that, because I was in opposition too, and there was no consultation with the opposition. I was the minister of the opposition person for national security. There was no speaking with the opposition. Very few, if little, with NGOs, with the business sector, with the religious organizations, having cottage meetings and community meetings with persons who are political supporters of a party does not make a vision for a country. Vision for a country is unifying every single one, putting your party card in your back pocket and putting a vision to understand, no man I must worship. I must worship my God. And if individuals are doing things that may be seen as being evil or being influenced by evil, it is time for you to open your eyes and make that choice.
I mean, Mr. Griffith, you're saying, I'm a Christian and I shouldn't say I am X till I die. All right? Well, fine. I understand that. I appreciate that. So what am I supposed to, how am I supposed to vote? How am I supposed to see, you know, this, because it's party politics we have in Trinidad and Tobago. So how do I get out of that? How do I make the transformation? What's the alternative? Because Pastor Brown is saying that there's a model. There's a model, and there are things that that, well, he said he hasn't discussed it with you, but he has sent some things to me. But how is that gonna reach the man in the street? The only way the man in the street can bring about change is by voting for a party. So I'm trying to understand how that difference will come. Help me.
Pastor, or you want me to go ahead?
You go ahead, go ahead.
Okay. All right. And again, the model, it must come from those persons who are the hierarchy of churches, whatever religious organization you're in, to try to remind citizens in your congregation, you must not worship man. You must not be in a political party supportive of it to the point that it is a culture. It no longer becomes a culture if you say that I don't care if they do good or bad, or the other sides, they do good or bad. That culture, you take away part of the words in culture, it's now a cult. You can't be in a cult where you blindly support something and then say you're a Christian. Because if something is evil or wrong, you're going to deliberately turn a blind eye. And I'm seeing it right now with my wife. When she puts out this petition because of the situation, persons who are so blinded by politics, they will turn about, but what about this? And what about Rishmi? And what is the point? We are speaking right now. The nation is under siege. We are drowning in blood. People made specific decisions to remove persons when it is we had it under control. You will turn a blind eye to all of that. My point is that the hierarchy of churches, when you're in that congregation, remind people, if you really are a Christian, or I am not saying you may very well, whether it is red, yellow, blue, I am not here to make that decision for you, but keep an open mind and let God guide you in that making it, because who you support is, there's a saying, the voice of the people is the voice of God, but it could very well be that evil can actually take so much power and precedence over that may cause persons to divert in the wrong way. And that's why we have seen countries collapse. We have seen police states. We have seen dictatorial countries. That certainly can't be the voice of the people. So I think it's important for the hierarchy of religious organizations to remind congregations, if you really are Christian, you can't be saying, I'm this and that till I die. You must have an open mind and see who is that person that is God-fearing, who is that individual or individuals that can unite a country rather than divide it.
We want to know why you. How will you be different? I'm not interested in the blaming. We know things are bad, but what are your plans for health, care, crime, the elderly, unemployed, and meeting the psychological needs of the poorest, or the physiological needs of the poorest? Food, clean water, and shelter. How will you change the trajectory of the children of the criminals? Can we get an ambulance within 10 minutes and more? Services are needed and citizens can be trained. Outsiders like me want to return home. We will bring talent and resources. What strategies do you have? As I said, maybe it's just something for you to think about. I know if you
but I can give it in a few seconds. Again, those things I put in place after working with the NYPD. That is why you saw under my watch, when someone called 999, you're getting a response in less than 5 minutes. And that was what played a major deterrent. That's what pegged criminal back. They saw the product of opportunity was no longer there. When you listen to that a few moments later, was because we had things such as a National Operations Center, GPS tracking on police vehicles, area of responsibility, monitoring their performance, measuring their performance, making sure that we assess them, and making sure that disciplinary action will be taken. So all of these things, and they do the same thing with an ambulance as well. It is not difficult. The reason that I am offering myself to this country is not as a politician wanting power, but as a servant of my God, offering myself to the people. Use me as a vehicle to unite Trinidad and Tobago, because I think that has been the problem. Politicians have deliberately divided the country for their own gain, because when you divide, you solidify your base to ensure that you can win. I intend to do just the opposite. I intend to break that glass ceiling of politicians holding everybody together and saying it's us versus them. I am here to be used as a vehicle of my God to unite the country. And how it can work? It is simple, not like the Vision 2020, but having some respect for those persons who are in opposition and hearing their views, hearing their concerns, that being part of a roadmap, not a manifesto, which is a glossy magazine with empty promises where 95% of the manifestos are never implemented because the people who become ministers never even knew about the manifesto in the first place, because they became ministers after the government wins the election. My intention, I do not care what political party card you have. If it is, I know you're on the side of good, if I know you have the expertise and the intellectual ability and the passion and the humility to come and be a servant of your God and for this country, I don't care what political party card you have. And that is what is required, because there are people with agendas. If you recall quickly, there was this guy fixing TNT. He spent 2 years, every 3 days for 2 years attacking me because he had an agenda. That's Mr. Kirkwaite. As soon as I was no longer commissioner of police, you notice for the last 2 years, it seems that TNT has been fixed, because there's never been a word about fixing TNT. So people have agendas. And I will ask all persons who are Christians, who are God-fearing, understand that your agenda, your mission, your one vote, your representation to decide who must not govern you, but serve you as a politician. That is what service is about, not leading and having power, but being there to serve. If you do that, each and every Christian has now become a proper representative of their God by making sure the right people can help Trinidad and Tobago.
So how do we get to that place where people are interested now and know, listen, I want to vote for this person because this person stands for, righteousness. This person is a person of integrity. How do we get people to change their minds? More than 60 years of doing the same thing over and over. Right.
I could. Because what you see, again, going back, yes, there will be 150,000 that will be this till I die, or born at this and I'll die at that. And that will not change. It happens all over the world. Democrats, Republicans have it. However, there is that third constituency of persons with a conscious vote. And they were the ones who always decide who is in government. The majority of that are really Christian. I would put that as persons who are God-fearing, who make a decision based on no or yes. This person has the answer. This person is someone that I can see that is going to make sure he makes a decision based on religion, based on what is right for the country, not what is in it for him. And that, thankfully, has always been the deciding factor. So it's not for us to get each and every one of the 150,000 on either side to understand if you're really a Christian, you can't be blindly supporting a party till you die, because you might very well be supporting someone who has become a devil, because remember, political parties have different leaders. And suppose that one day that leader is the devil, or another political party that one day that person is someone who can be a savior for a country. You cannot say that I'm a Christian, but still I will support the devil, and I will not. That is what we have to get them out of, which is why I said the hierarchy in the churches, the leadership. You're not telling people who to vote for. That is where I will draw the line. I don't think that that religious organization should say that. But what you can do is guide them and remind them of your principles, of you being a child of God, that you can't just be blindly supporting someone if what they're doing is wrong. And don't just be making decisions because you're so blinded by one party. Anytime you can say that every single time there's a debate, you always find and support the views of one party over the other, you have now become someone who worships man. And I use the word man, whether it's man or woman. So the fact is there. The other thing is, what I did as a commissioner of police and minister is not a Gary thing, but getting the best minds available. So in the police service, to transform something that was the least trusted at 14%, when I left to make it the most trusted in the public service at 55%, is because I got the best person available. I didn't care if you were PNM, UNC, ABC, or XYZ. The best person in technology, operations, administration, human resource, administration, communication, bringing them together and transform the police service. I will be able to do the same thing to transform every arm in our public service by getting the right people who are not just opportunists who just want something from the country, but who are really willing to serve their God and serve this country.
Mr. Gary Griffith, I've given you 60 seconds. Huh?
Yes, you can get less. I need less than that. Again, what is required is not for, sometimes commissioners say that what we require is divine intervention. This is not about us praying and asking God to save our country. That is the obvious. That is what we will always do. What is required is that prayer of us praying to God to make sure that we make the right decisions to appoint the persons in leadership to ensure that those persons can be the right servant of God to secure our country and to lead our country. That is what is required. Just blindly praying and asking God for divine intervention to stop crime, that is not going to work. God helps those who help themselves. We must make sure that we have a part to play in that divine, in ensuring that we make the right choice. And some persons need to step out. It is not just about Gary Griffith. We need other soldiers to be servants of God to serve this country.
Thank you very much.